Hello and welcome to Professional Tutors. We are a team of dedicated and qualified teachers whose main aim is to help you reach your full potential.
Hello, this is the third video that I've recorded so far for your references regarding revision. You have, like I said, a library of videos that I will be recording to help you support your learning. This one is we're going to be doing some biology over the next couple of lessons. We've done electrics, electromagnet circuits, voltage, current. You know what you need to be looking at on there, as I've mentioned that during the video. Today we're going to go over cells. We're going to be looking at cell structure. It's very important that you can distinguish, you can tell the differences between a plant and an animal cell. You'll be asked that on an exam. I know we've looked at this recently, but I'm doing these videos for you to be able to keep them in place and they'll follow the spec. So I'm going to screen share with you. And I'm going to discuss with you along the way what it is you need to be fine with, because these are potential exam questions that can come up, like differences between plants and animal cells. You could have a table and you have to put the differences in. Similarities, differences. Same as, for example, cell wall in a plant, not in an animal cell. That vacuole plant, not so much in an animal cell. Okay, so I'm going to screen share this. This is an interactive boardworks that I like using because you can see 3D models on here. And what happens there is you can get a better understanding of what they're all about. So if we start with biology in our environment, and we look at cells. Now this is looking at cell characteristics. What we mean by characteristics, what makes up the actual cell and what it does, the job that it does. So we'll look at cell characteristics. Now, this is referring to cells being the building blocks of life, and every living organism is made of it. Whether you are an ant or whether you are an elephant, you are made up of cells, millions of cells. And this is just giving you an example here. That's just a human made from small cells. They come in various sizes, various shapes, depending on the job that you need to do. Some organisms are single celled, like a bacterium, it's mentioned in this here, but we are multicellular. Now, this question here, why do we study cells? It's important to study cells in order to make improvements to our lives if medicines need to be made. We've got that. I mean, at the moment, we're studying viruses to see whether we can get vaccination for this COVID. We have vaccinations for lots and lots of diseases, measles, mumps, rubella, and they come about through studying cells, studying bacterial cells, looking at the structure of viruses. So this is just referring to here why we might study cells. Now I'll upload this slide for you, and you can just look at this at your own leisure, but you won't really be called upon yet to ask to mention these particular diseases and why they need to. What you do need to be familiar with are the structure of the microscope, which you've looked at quite a few times with me. So you've got your eyepiece lens, magnification lens, and the stage that you put the sample on. So eyepiece lens, magnification, stage, and then focusing. So just a bit of revision then for you. Now, this is where we start to identify plant and animal cells and to be able to distinguish between the two. So it says that you identify which is a plant cell and which is an animal cell. Well, I think this one being green would be a bit of a giveaway, really. And it's also got a cell wall. That would be a plant cell. What I want you to be familiar here with is what these structures do, right? And what they are. So, for example, we've got cytoplasm. So, what I'd like you to do when you're looking at this is write the title, what's inside a typical animal cell. And then you write, then underneath you put cytoplasm, and you explain what the cytoplasm does. So you write that out. That is very important. Because when you're in year 9, we'll be looking at this, you'll also have test times. Early on in year 9, actually, because you'll study cells straight away. Okay? So cytoplasm, It's a jelly-like material which the organelles sit in. When I say organelles, even plants and animal cells have their own tiny little organs called organelles. And they're little parts of the cell that do a job. Cytoplasm, typical animal cell. So you write that title and then you explain that. Then cell membrane. The cell membrane is partially permeable. What that means is it allows certain substances through. For example, glucose, so the cell can get energy. Amino acids can make proteins. Oxygen, because the cells need oxygen. They're the kind of things that the cell membrane allows through, so the cell can function properly. So you write that cell membrane there, and then you write what's in the membrane cell. Then we have nucleus. Now the nucleus controls the cell, and this is where the cell's DNA is located. DNA is what makes us who we are. Codes for proteins. It's our characteristics, who we are, our genes. Our genes are made from DNA. Your eye colour, your hair colour, how tall you are, all of those kind of characteristics are controlled by genes. So you write that out, and then ribosomes. That's where proteins are made. Ribosomes are very small. Proteins are made and they leave the cell. For example, a hormone, an enzyme, and a protein. They're made in a cell and then they're released into the blood. And lastly, mitochondria. Now, mitochondria is where energy takes place within the cell. And they're like little beans. And what they do, they provide the energy for the cell from mitochondria. So what I want you to do is write these out and what they do. That's very important because you're going to need to learn it. Okay? Here's our typical plant cell. So the same thing I want you to do. So what's inside a typical plant cell? Click on the button. So you've got cytoplasm. So you write that. Similar to the animal cell, the cytoplasm. Each T has got a cell membrane. The word's got a cell wall. So a cell membrane again. So you write what that does. Stop this video and rewind it, play it, see why I'm doing it. It's been quite frustrating where, unfortunately, some of you have been having connection issues and quite a few actually, and this helps in this way. If you stop the video, you also got it for reference. And then you have nucleus, so you write that out. That's in the cell's DNA as well. Cell wall. What's inside a typical cell? The cell wall is an external barrier made of cellulose. If you put lots and lots of water into the soil of a plant, this plant cell won't burst because the cell wall supports the cell. So instead it just becomes turgid. The plant does, it becomes upright. So you can have a wilting plant, give it some water, and it becomes upright because the pressure forces against the cell wall and it makes the plant upright. Now these things are very important. Vacuole, right? Cavity that contains water and nutrients, which allows the plant to take in or lose water. And the cell wall prevents it from bursting. Vacuole will help to take in water. Mitochondria, even plants need energy. Look. So energy, even plants respire. Although they photosynthesize, they also respire as well while breathing. And then finally, very important, chloroplast. Chloroplast contains chlorophyll, the green pigment important for photosynthesis. That's where photosynthesis takes place. What that means is it converts light energy into chemical energy in the form of sugar and then stores it as starch in the leaves. Or moves it around the plant where it's needed. That's a typical plant cell. This is just a little bit of a recap of that one. It says animal and plant cells can all be identified with types of organisms. Start. So, chloroplast. Plant. Mitochondria. Cytoplasm. Cell membrane. Starch membrane. Vacuum. And nucleus. So, okay, very, very interesting here. Okay. Make sure you're familiar with this. You can actually draw and not draw this out, because what you put basically is a table, and all of those will be down here, and you've got to put them in the right box. That is an easy 3 marker on a text page. It's a key stage 3 test. So I'll leave you with that. Okay. Now this is looking at cell diversity. What we mean by that is this. What you will be asked on as well is to identify these cells. So it's a good idea to draw them actually, so that they're in your mind then, when you need memory, because you'll be asked to identify them. And again, that's a nice format, or it could be a format. So we've got intestinal epithelial cell, it's in the intestine, root hair in the plant, red blood cell, palisade cell in the leaf. Now, as far as these cells are concerned, the intestinal cell is responsible for absorbing nutrients from digested food into the blood. It's got lots of little villi on it, and they increase the surface area so more absorption can take place. Then you have this with the root hair cell. Now the root hair cell has got lots of hairs on it. You can't see them, but what that does is that helps absorb water from the minerals from the soil and water, because that's got lots and lots of these hairs, and it increases the surface area. The larger the surface area, the more absorption. Red blood cell has no nucleus, because it needs all of the space it's got to hold oxygen that it picks up from the lungs. And the palisade cell is responsible for photosynthesis. All of this green pigments in chloride. So be familiar with these. Make a note of them, draw them, label them, learn them. Very important. I missed this one. Neuron, nerve cell. Right? The nerve impulse travels down the nerve cell like that. These dendrites are where another nerve cells connect, and they form the network of your nervous system. Be familiar with that? Well, in this one, sperm cell carries genetic material. The tail for swimming. Half of the amount of chromosomes, 23. The egg will have 23. Getting together 46. Fertilized egg then contains all of the chromosomes. Okay. This is talking about organelles, right? Cells are adapted to perform specific functions because they've got a certain shape, type of organelles. Now, if they've got lots and lots of mitochondria, then that tissue, those cells need a lot of energy. Muscle cells, for example, lots of mitochondria for energy. And this one, chloroplasts, lots of chloroplasts, photosynthesis. That's what that's referring to. So I would make a point of these 3 here, right? Where it says cells are adapted to perform this function, adapted in several ways: shape, type of organelles, number of organelles. So be familiar with that one. This is just showing you how it is adapted to its function, because of its tail and its head containing the DNA. It's also got an enzyme in the end which helps it to bury its way into the egg, fertilizer. This is intestinal cells. I've already mentioned this to you: microvilli, mitochondria, and fast cell division. So intestinal cells, we need to write some facts on intestinal cells. Right, so do that. And remember the microvilli. That's very important. It increases the surface area. Mitochondria needs a lot of energy, and it divides rapidly because lots of them get broken and damaged as time goes on. This is a root hair cell. It's asking me to match the features, right? So look. Mitochondria provide the energy. Maximize the surface area. Okay. So I'll put a little one on. No, fine. There we go. So be familiar with those two. Right. Next one. Tissues and neurons. Right. Tissues are groups of cells that work together, right, to form a function. And here we have organs. They're groups of tissues that form a function. And then we have, after organs, we have organ systems. So I want you to write down tissues, organs, right? This is basic biology. Cell, tissue, organ, then organ system. For example, that could be the cardiovascular system. Have a look. Yeah, these are different types of tissue, right? I'm only concerned with this one, epithelial tissue, right? And it just shows you a picture. Epithelial tissue is a line, so just show you. You don't need to dwell too much on these at the moment. So just the tissue, right? These are the different tissues, right? Reproductive nerve, the epithelial muscle connected. Just read through that. That's the one that you will come across mainly. Okay? You'll have this anyway, so you can refer to this later on. But at the moment, just stay with cells. I'm going over this because it's a reference point for you to keep. And you can dip back into this later on in the school year. Right? If you're asked to do a task in the next school or in year 8, and if you're in year 7 and you're in year 8 or you're in year 8, going to year 9, you've got reference points for this video. Okay. Now I'll show you what the epithelial tissue does. There you are. And all of the layers in the body are called epithelial layers. Inside your cheek, your nose and your ears, anywhere that there's linings, you've got epithelial tissue. And that's what that is referring to. This is something that you will not need yet, but it's something that you can keep, just like a reference book. So you do not, I'll say it again, you do not need this. Just be familiar with epithelial. This bit, that will be later on. Okay? You can use this throughout key stage 3 and 4, this video. And I'll put these up. As I say, you don't need these at the moment. This is an interesting point which I've read through. It's like an application of information. And it's where scientists have developed skin cells in the lab. And what this has done is people have like burns or problems they need skin wax, they can actually grow the skin in the lab. So they grow the skin cells in special medium and it enables them to make them, enable them to make cells. So have a read of this, it's quite interesting. It says here they've got a cocktail of nutrients. They put different nutrients in, like glucose and oxygen and ions and things like that, amino acids for them to be able to develop this protein. This is just an activity that you could do. Working in a lab, you need to grab drawings from medical students, different cells, but you've already done this for me earlier on. I asked you to do that. How much do you know about cells? This is a self quiz that you can give yourself later, because I'm going to upload this PowerPoint for you. Okay? So I'm going to stop sharing now. Okay? So I've just talked you through cells, cell structure, cell organelles. I've mentioned the key points that you need to write down. Very important. Right? You've also looked at tissue. I'm only concerned with epithelial tissue, none of the others. Okay? You'll do that later on. This video is for you to keep throughout your school. You'll even refer to it, look back on it in year 10 when you do a summary of the biology text. So they are useful for you as a reference point. Pieces that you need to know now and next year, I've mentioned on the video where I've asked you to write certain things down. So make sure you do. Keep them in your revision guide or your reference book, wherever you're keeping it. Very important that you do that. Okay? And I'll see you later.